Last video we talked about the Pokémon titles, Pokémon Winds and Pokémon Waves, and what those winds and waves could tell us, and we ended up theorizing about the legendary types and also the gimmick itself. At the end I talked about how there was another theory that I had because of that, and that it should have its own video, and so well, here it is. So hey, I'm Not So Ace Trainer, and what about other legendaries? Let's get into it. Almost every region has sub-legendaries, who while not being the big box ones or even the usually hidden third, represent other things related to the region, usually little bits of secondary lore like the forces of nature in Gen 5 or the treasures of ruin in Gen 9, or actual main plot points like the Lake Trio in Gen 4 or the legendary beasts in Pokémon Crystal. Sometimes they are just there because they add something extra for you to do, like legendary birds in Gen 1 or the Regi Trio in Gen 3. Other times they don't even exist in the main games like in Pokémon Sword and Shield, or don't exist at all like in Pokémon X and Y. Most of the time though, there is something, and Pokémon X and Y is still the only game that doesn't have anything. And so I think Pokémon Winds and Pokémon Waves won't be any different. And even if there isn't a legendary trio or quartet, there's always a third legendary, and so we have something to talk about in this theory. I know it's still early to theorize about any other legendary, but the reality is that Pokemon theories evolve with the things the trailers show us, and I like revisiting things as new things come out. But anyway, as a recap, when talking about the gimmick in this last new video, I talked about how it could be related to the unit that measures electrical resistance, the ohm, which is represented by an uppercase omega very similar to the gimmick symbol. What came to me is that other legendary Pokemon in this region could also be tied to whatever the gimmick really ends up being, and so they could be connected to electrical resistance in a way. Like I explained last video, electrical resistance usually divides materials in two different groups, conductors and insulators. Conductors barely oppose the electrical flow, and insulators do oppose the electrical flow. In Pokemon terms, I assume that conductors would channel the gimmick's power well, while insulators would not really do that or completely shut it off. With this in mind, I think we can start to predict some typings, and so let's start with a possible sub-legendary group. Considering the mention of Harmony in the official Pokémon Winds and Waves website and the description of a region that seems to be in perfect balance, I'd assume that whatever sub-legendary group exists will also follow that same rule. What I mean is that if the Winds and Waves legendaries truly are meant to represent sources of energy, that those sub-legendaries will have to be good conductors of said energy. And going back to electrical resistance, well, some of the best conductors are metals. For that reason, I'd assume that a group of Pokemon with a steel type as the secondary type they share is a very likely possibility to symbolize how they can channel the gimmick's power. Basically, they're all in harmony, and as for their primary types, I think we could go with the basic elemental ones like water, fire and grass, or maybe if they're four, water, fire, grass and electric. As for how they would look like, that's a whole nother story. I'd say Naga, but I think the main legendaries might be just that. Maybe it could be a bunch of Limbuswana, a strange, weird, lion-headed, elephant-winged creature. But I honestly can't think of anything with enough certainty. I believe I need to dive a little bit deeper into Southeast Asian lore to know a little bit more, and I can see Limbuswana being something else. Now for the third legendary. We just had a game where we saw Zygarde coming back, Pokemon Legends ZA, and Zygarde is a Pokemon known for breaking the aura for nullifying the abilities of Yveltal and Xerneas. What if we have something similar but yet a different approach to this? In order for harmony to be kept, there needs to be something capable of keeping things in check when something gets out of control. When it comes to electricity, there needs to be something to keep it grounded. So when the legendaries become too powerful or are used in a way that they shouldn't be used, the third legendary, in my theory, needs to have the power to absorb or channel their power and keep it from overflowing. For that reason, and doing things in a bit of a literal way, I think we might be facing a ground Pokemon, one that keeps things grounded. I would say Dragon and Ground, but I think that would be too much like Zygarde. As for its looks, honestly, here I'd actually like to see the Lembuswana taking the stage, as I think creatures could easily create something very cool with this mythical creature. So, continuing the electrical resistance ohm theory from the Gimmick symbol, I believe these are the types that the new sub-legendaries and new third legendary from Pokémon Winds and Pokémon Waves can have. The second trailer will very likely reveal the new legendaries, the boxed ones, and their types as well, and so that might change everything, but for now this is it. But what about you? What do you imagine for the legendaries or sub-legendaries of Pokémon Winds and Pokémon Waves? Let me know down below. And now that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all on the next one. But before I go, I want to thank my YouTube members Good Old Deo, Sean Speaks and Dash Plays, and my Twitch subscribers Anubis Here, Zanes222, Lazarix, The Dr. Joe, and Teixeira23 for going that extra mile. Thank you so much for all of your support.